On this episode of Normal Guy Games, we paint the Fuel Reservoir and Thermic Plasma Regulators. Now, I'm using the same method on this that I did on the furnace. So the first thing, of course, is to sponge on the silver onto the bits that you want to be silver. Now, if you're sponging on, it is going to probably bleed over onto the lip on the top and the bottom. Bottom is fine, no one's ever going to see that, but the top, if you just run a finger across it real quick, it'll just smudge it, and it just kind of looks like either paint damage or whatnot. Perfectly fine to leave up there. And this is pretty much the quickest and easiest step, is just take your time and go around the edges and just put that silver on there. Now here's where I change things up a little bit. I'm using another iron color from Army Painter here, and this is once again just a color that I'm using to pick out a few different pieces, a couple of the plates, you know, just a couple of different areas just to break up the monotony of just silver and blue. And it's an interesting color. It's like a burnt iron type color. It's weird looking, so I figured I'd use it on a couple of things. Now at this point, I once again am just using a different color, this time red, to pick out a couple of places and just make it look a little bit different. Once again, I'm just trying to break up the different pieces here and just make it look a little different than usual. So I'm just picking out a couple of different pieces. You can use whatever color you want, or you can leave it silver, whatever you want. That's the great thing about these, is that it'll look good no matter what color you put on it. So, on to the panel liner step, and this can be done just like with the ferrotonic furnace video that I put out. You can do this with a very thin wash. You can do this with all kinds of different stuff. You can add some, flow improver to paint and just kind of brush it in. However you want to do it. I just decided that I kind of wanted to try this stuff, and it works out pretty good. It has good capillary action, and it makes the different plates look like they're separated a little bit better. The all you have to remember when using this is just make sure you brush a little bit off before you apply it, because it will bead up on the end of the applicator. So for the next step, I'm using Nuln oil to just hit those different metallic areas. This makes everything stand out a little bit, and it differentiates the colors and puts a little bit of a shadow underneath the rivets. This is just a quick and easy step, and Nuln oil works great for it. So on to the thermic plasma regulators. So these guys are being treated just like the ferrotonic furnace and the reservoir. I did a zenithal prime of dark blue and then sage, and then I hit all the silver areas in the walkways, or I'm sorry, the banding in the walkways and different pipes and whatnot with silver. And I went over the silver areas, you know, just basically you got to pick a couple of random areas on here. I find that doing all the plates and the pipes and, you know, the conduits and things like that, it makes it look a little bit better if you just silver a bunch of that up. So here I'm using the same recipe that I did for the ferrotonic furnace, and I'm using the Balathean chitin. Oh, I'm sorry, not Balathean chitin, that's just my favorite one. I'm using yellowed bone from Reaper, and then a brains beige from Army Painter, and then on the top a matte white from Army Painter, just in a couple of different areas. And once again, I'm just kind of sponging this on, leaving some of that silver to shine through, and then I'll go back later and make some adjustments. But just for the main purpose here, you just want to make the yellowed bone the most prominent color, and then just sponge the lighter colors on little by little. So moving on, what I'm doing here is just hitting the inner areas with blue. Now I should have done this before I did the silver, but for some reason I did these backwards, but it'll be alright. I'll get over myself. So I'm putting the darker blue on, and then after that a lighter blue, and then a lighter blue. But on the lighter blues I'm just kind of I'm using a stippling technique to just kind of stipple it in the middle while the darker blue is still wet, so it kind of blends a little bit. So moving on to the cleanup step. So what I'm doing here is just taking some of that silver and picking out a couple of areas that have been painted over with the tans and or the other colors that I've been slapping around on this thing, and just kind of cleaning up all of those areas and making things look a little bit better. This step is not necessary, but it makes everything look a little bit better if you just kind of put a little bit of cohesion into your paint job instead of leaving all that tan everywhere. There are going to be some places that are different colors. Some of the inner workings, like the pipes and whatnot, are going to be silver instead of tan, or some of them might be red. However you feel like you want to do this. But just the cleanup step is really kind of makes everything look good. Plus, if you get a little bit of silver on the walkways or whatnot, it's really easy just to call that just regular damage. And like with the fuel reservoir and the furnace, I am picking out a couple of different areas, some pipes and whatnot, just to put a little bit of red on. And this breaks up the monotony of the different colors, and it puts in this particular case, a warmer color into the scheme, just to kind of draw the eyes around. And with that being done, I throw a wash on the silver sections and on the walkways. Now I am not going to wash the entire piece of terrain. I have not been washing the whole terrain on this stuff. I've been just washing, as always, just the silver pieces and the walkways. And that kind of saves a little bit of Nuln Oil in the end. And it kind of helps to, the Nuln Oil does add a little bit of shadows where shadows need to be, especially on the walkway areas and the platforms. So the platforms need it, especially since you're, throwing a couple of different colors on there with sponging. That black wash helps to kind of pull everything together and make it so those colors, those stark colors, blend a little bit better than they would if it were just the walkways and just sponging without the wash. And I decided here at the end just to throw a little bit of Nuln Oil in a few areas just to dirty it up a little bit. And once that's I actually forgot on this particular piece to paint the metallic banding around the top of it. And so that's what I'm doing now, is just cleaning up a couple of different areas where I had forgotten. And that is it. It's fairly simple, quick, paint job. So like and subscribe, join me on Patreon and on Discord. And I would like to say I appreciate every one of you. Thank you.